All right, we got none, but really, we're gonna do it.
August 13th, 2025, LCTCS Board of Supervisors Audit Committee meeting to order. If I may, I'd like to ask Supervisor Moody to lead us in pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Cool, will you conduct the roll?
Yes, sir. Happy to do so. Chair Salat is absent. Vice Chair Hall is present.
Present.
Supervisor Hogan
Present.
is present. Supervisor Moody
Here.
is present. Supervisor Johnson
Here.
is present. And at this time, Vice Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any requests for public comment to the agenda items?
No, sir, not at this time.
Thank you. I request a motion to approve the April 9th, 2025 minutes.
Motion by Moody, seconded. First motion by Moody, seconded by Johnson.
Carries. I'd like to at this time invite Jeff Fleming to review the revisions of the internal audit standard manual.
Thank you, Supervisor. Yeah, first off, I want to just get a little housekeeping out of the way with the standards manual update. As I presented to you at the April meeting, we updated our charter. The Institute of Internal Auditors, they seem so fit to update their standards in January of this year, and to comply with their standards, we had to update our charter and manual. The charter was approved in April, and now this will be the standards manual update approval. Just to point out a couple of things with the standards manual update, they really focused on aligning the standards with the organizational goals, which is important to us. So I was glad to see that. Stronger emphasis on boards and management. And you'll see that at probably the December meeting. We're doing an adjustment on my annual evaluation, which will include the audit committee. Increased cybersecurity focus, which makes sense. And also they're now requiring, in the past, they required an quality review assessment every 5 years by an outside entity. They've added now, they ask you to do an annual assessment on yourself to try to make sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted. So we will be doing that sometime next year. And I believe we're due for a quality assessment in 27 or 28. And again, that's an external review. And the last one we got was very positive, so I'd expect the same next time around. But are there any questions about the standards manual update? None? If not, I'd like to make a recommendation. Staff recommends that the audit committee of the LCTCS Board of Supervisors approve the revisions to the internal audit policies manual, August 2025 update, as presented by the internal audit director to be effective upon approval.
Is there a motion?
Motion by Supervisor Moody, seconded by Supervisor Johnson. Thank you.
Motion carries.
Great.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just one quick item. We will be coming back to the board with a policy adjustment that deals with the personnel aspect for evaluation. So we'll bring that back to the board at some point, likely in the January, February timeframe.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda is our year-end report for fiscal 25. Most of these projects you've been presented with already, so I won't spend too much time on them, but I will focus on, there are a few reports we issued since we last met in April. I'd like to focus on those. Just starting off, we did a federal student aid review at Sowella Community College. No findings. Excuse me. This report, what we do is we take the top 10 findings that the feds are finding on financial aid, and we focus on those areas. Given our resources, we don't have the ability to do a full financial aid review, which is bog us down. But if we can focus on those problem areas, it allows us to hit more places in a calendar, in a fiscal year. We went to Sowella, no issues, which we love to see. Next is restricted fees. We went to SLCC. Restricted fees are a little tricky sometimes because they're governed by statute. So we have a law on the books which says you can use this monies for certain things. These are your academic excellence, building use, technology. Technology is usually the one that can sometimes trip us up. We did have one issue at SLCC, which they've already corrected. They needed to update their plan to match what they were actually doing with the fees, and also getting student input, which is required by law with their tech fee, which they've already done. Before even issued the report, they made the correction. And so going forward, we don't see that being an issue. I will note about restricted fees, we will continue that into the next fiscal year, because each place that we've gone, we've been able to provide them feedback for improvement. So you'll see that when I present the audit plan for next fiscal year. I think it's important that we continue this. I always say if one college is having an issue, there's a good chance another college is having the same.
Yeah, just on that note, when you mentioned tech fee, it's the most restricted fee that all of higher ed has, because it's pretty prescriptive in terms of what has to happen. And as just a note mentioning to the audit committee that as part of that today, there's actually a board item related to that. There's a requirement that all colleges have to report to their management boards the use of the prior year fees. So there's actually a board item in today's agenda that has that meets that. So check that box, please, okay?
Not a tick box or
Yeah.
lead sheet. Next is disaster recovery and business continuity. We went to Nunez and where else we here? Fletcher, Nunez and Fletcher. Again, and this is more of it's a maturity model. You know, the colleges are always looking to improve their disaster recovery plans. So we're coming in and taking a snapshot, we're relying on some best practices that we know of and looking to assist them in that process. I think the biggest takeaway is the colleges need to improve on their business impact analysis. They might have the plan, but they never really took the time on the front end to say, okay, well, if this or this happens, this is how my business processes are affected, and this is the priority in which we need them to come back online. That would assist their disaster recovery. You know, it'd make it more focused on those key areas. And also another bit of feedback we're able to give them is testing these plans. Even if it's you don't have to simulate shutting the power grid down or whatnot, but you can do a tabletop exercise, go through with your key folks and make sure everybody's on the same page. And again, the disaster recovery will be continuing that into the next fiscal year. Next project we did was elected officials. The higher ed has a unique opportunity, I'll call it. Normally, you work for DOTD, you're a public employee, you can't also hold an elected official position. You can't be the mayor of Baton Rouge. But higher ed, the law allows for an exception. If you work for a higher ed institution, you're a public servant, you can also hold an elected official position. With that comes certain responsibilities. You have to make sure that your time is being spent when you're at your job on those. You need to be focused on your job and not on your elected official activities. You need to make sure there's some forms and HR related things that need to be taken care of. So what we do is every 4 or 5 years or so, we'll do this project to make sure everybody knows that, hey, we're on top of this. That the greatest control is somebody knowing that you're watching or checking. One thing I will note, the real risk is when we have a state legislature member, because their work hours would conflict when the legislature's in session. The 7 individuals we identified as elected officials, the majority of them were on school boards and they meet in the evening. So there's no direct conflict. And we didn't find any conflicts. We speak to their supervisor. We found no conflicts between their elected official activity and working for one of our institutions. So that was a good outcome. again, when I first started LCTCS, this was a project we would do annually. And believe it or not, I think at one time we had close to 25 elected officials working in the system. Now we have 7. So I don't think it's a huge risk, but doing it every few years or so, you'll usually catch the folks who are new to their elected official position. They've never gone through the review. So I do think it's worth our time. Again, no issues. Next project we did was segregation of duties. We identified one of our colleges in the system who had recently a lot of turnover in their finance department, Bossier Parish Community College. We just wanted to make, with that and the roles changing and new people coming in, we wanted to make sure there wasn't any conflicts. You know, segregation of duties in finance, the easiest one is you don't want somebody to be able to create a vendor, pay a vendor. You want to have somebody in between that process to make sure somebody can't control it creates a environment of fraud. Another thing, you know, petty cash, you don't want somebody who taking the cash and also creating the bank receipt and bring it to the bank. You want some type of break in that chain. A lot of this is technology driven now with our segregation of duties and the banner system. So a lot of the red flags can be caught with a report that constantly runs, but there were also some steps that we took outside of that, and I can report we found no issues, which was good. Like I said, they've gone through a lot of turnover, and I think some of the things we looked at also gave them some recommendations to improve their process, even though nothing was what I would call a finding.
Jeff, can you mind if I just kind of
Sure.
highlight that, because it's I don't want this lost on the committee. When Jeff says there's a report that's issued, we created a report that is run monthly that basically and sent out to all the colleges that basically flags that this person with this authority in banner may have conflicting roles. It highlights them for them. So that in and of itself is not bad. Because there may be a need where the college is so small, the staff are so small that they have to have those conflicting roles. However, you must have mitigating controls in place for that. And that's usually, and unfortunately, given what it is, a paper process or some type of sign off or check off or something to that effect. But there is a report that was generated and created specifically for that purposes, because we do have some campuses with small staffs.
Right. Well, so that's what we did with the processes that were flagged. We looked at their mitigating controls to make sure they had another, some level of oversight to make sure there wasn't any issue. Next, this one was a big one. It took a lot of our time, but I think it was worth it. One of the big things, Dr. Sullivan and I talk about is continuity between our colleges and the system. Each one is individual, but they're largely dealing with the same issues. We looked at financial aid policies and procedures. Dr. Amy Cable came to be around this time last year, and she said, the biggest issue I have is when somebody calls me with a financial aid issue, I ask them, what's your policy or what's your procedure on that? And, the other end of the phone gets silent. So she said, we have the resources. NASFA provides us this builder where they can build out their policies and procedures, and it'll be exactly like you want it. But the colleges don't want to spend the time on the front end to do that. A lot of that knowledge is just with an individual, which is kind of scary, because if they go, it walks out the door. So what we did was we looked at each college's policies and procedures and compared them to the standard, and kind of gave them certain levels of compliance, greater than 80% and so on and so forth. I don't want to say one's good and one's bad. It's just some colleges have not put that time in to do it. But now, before we even issued, that process has already started. I talked to Dr. Cable last week, and she's already had colleges reaching out asking for the resources. So we're going to revisit this next year, give them a year to do it. But I would imagine everybody would be over that 80% threshold. And again, it's really just putting that effort on the front end. And I think this is beneficial because, and you'll see a kind of a maturity process of the projects that we do and kind of taking them to the next level when I present the plan for next year. But things should not be drastically different at one college than the other, because, you know, if somebody goes to North Shore and their experience, financial aid experience, should be very similar to the one at Sowella. And sometimes that's not always the case. So, and again, when I present for next year, you'll see what I'm talking about. A little teaser, they call that. Lastly is our purchase card and travel card reviews. These are required by the Division of Administration. They also do their own reviews, but they want internal audit to do these as well. 3 reviews this year: Northwest, the System Office, and SLCC. No issues. I think there's definitely a trend here. In the past, it seems like every time we did these, we'd at least have 1 or 2 issues, and nothing major, nefarious, but just folks not following procedure. But lately, it's been a while since we've had 130 findings. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but you know, I do think they get more familiar with working in these systems, and now they're on their 2nd cycle of internal audit reviews. Working in these systems, you're seeing more no findings reports. That's all the work we've done. Well, that's all the project work we've done. I want to point out, you know, as ethics liaison, we are responsible for, I answer a lot of ethics queries, get a lot of questions, got to this, when school starts, it really ramps up. I think the student clubs, and the faculty and staff, they come up with all these great ideas during the summer, and then they hit the finance folks or the administration with this idea, and they're like, oh gosh. Then it comes to me. So we've been answering a lot of those, but we also handle all the ethics training reporting, those ethics training, hour-long trainings y'all do. I'm the one who gets that reported to ethics, and it takes a while because of the process we have set up, but we do a lot of that. Like I said, we answer a lot of ethics questions, but also business process questions, fraud questions. That takes a lot of our time. We usually discuss that outside of this meeting because they don't end up in a report, but I try to structure the audit plan in a way that still allows us to be able to react to those things, because the biggest thing I want the colleges to know is if they reach out to internal audit, that we're there for them. I don't want to say, well, I'll get to it in next year, let me put it on the plan in a couple of years. I want them to know that we're here as a resource for them. So that's that was last year's fun. Is there any questions? Okay, I'd like to present the audit plan that I've come up with for fiscal year 25-26.
If I may, before you jump in, just want to point out, those of you who are in organizations that have had or have an internal auditor, you've sort of seen the traditional notion of internal audit that is typically looking at dollars and cents kinds of things. What we've asked Jeff and the team to do an internal audit is to get further into the mission. And by getting further into the mission, what we mean by that is be a little more involved in the direct self-generated revenue, as an example. How do we do a better job of driving that self-generated revenue? Hence the financial aid review. So you see now that the internal audit shop is beginning to go deeper into the mission, which is going to only help the organization get better. I simply want to say thank you to Jeff for being an internal auditor who thinks outside of the traditional and thinks more about the plan. So, Jeff.
I appreciate that. For the plan for 25-26, as I said, restricted fees, disaster recovery, and financial aid are carrying over. In the past, you know, I think we've had this idea that, oh, we got to come up with 5 or 6 new projects every year, but it kind of leave these ones behind that were, I think, again, restricted fees as an example. every college that we've done, we've been able to offer them feedback for improvement. So I don't think it's a good idea to just leave that at one or two and then move on. We need to get to everybody. Same with disaster recovery. I mean, these are important issues that need addressing, and I don't think we try to get coverage, we try to go to everybody, but I don't think it's fair to just leave colleges behind, or maybe send out an email and say, hey, we found this, that the others look into this. They deserve a full review as well. So again, those three projects are coming over. I will say the financial aid controls, we're gonna do something a little different this year. Rather than going to one college and doing that top 10 finding review I mentioned, we're going to do one area and review every college. So for instance, you have satisfactory academic progress. That's one of the big finding areas that colleges across the country get. We're gonna look at that at every single college, pull samples, and that way we get even more coverage. I think that allows us, rather than going to one, I can say next year when I'm sitting here presenting to you that we looked at satisfactory academic progress at every single college, and I think there's a lot of impact with that. I do want to get into the two projects that aren't carried over. And I think these are, as Dr. Sullivan said, they're not your traditional internal audit projects. There's no gotcha here. This is where, like I said, diving into the mission and really making an impact. And the first one is instructional overload contracts. A little background, every June I send out an email reaching out to the chancellor's board, senior staff saying, hey, if you have any ideas, if you have any issues, there's something keeping you up at night, I'd like to consider it for the audit plan. And I always give preference to if a chancellor reaches out to me with an idea, because it takes a lot of courage for a chancellor to say, hey, internal audit, come to my college. And I think that speaks volumes. So Dr. Strickland at Fletcher came with this one. She said, we're having a hard time doing an analysis on when to use overload. Overload is when they have more, the class is expanding, they have another section. Do we hire an adjunct? Do we pay one of our full-time faculty to cover that, which brings in a benefits issue? Do we, something she brought up to me, there's also a level of, we want to serve students, but there has to be a cost benefit analysis of opening another section. Like, are we going to put ourselves in a financial bind by serving? There's got to be a threshold if it's 10 students, 20 students, 30 students. So this is work, and she and I have had this discussion. This is work that the college could do on their own, but they're serving, they're carrying out the mission. This is extra work for them. And also if we come into the process, it starts a beginning and end. It's kind of like that kick, okay, internal audit's here, they're going to help us, they're going to assist us with this, we can get on with it. And I'm really anxious to get into the nuts and bolts of this, because this applies across the system. And some of our other colleges have already done this work, so I can reach out to them and see what they've done. But I think this is going to be a big benefit, because this is a conversation that comes up in almost every PAC meeting. So it's finance, it's HR, it's mission, it's culture, it's across the board. So it's going to be a big one.
So just a quick comment here. If you take the schedule of a given college, doesn't matter what the college is, 80% of the revenue and 80% of the expense of that college is in the schedule. So if you don't manage that schedule, then you have other challenges. So when you think about how you staff a long-term care facility or any other facility, you've got to be paying attention to who you're paying what to do what job. And in this instance, I was at Delgado in 2012. We had an $85 million budget with a $13 million deficit. It was ugly. What we did was we analyzed those sections. We had 7,200 sections every year that ran. 72% of those sections were taught by full-timers. Those full-time faculty have an expense for us that is above the revenue we collect on those sections. because you've got effectively $5,000 per section that we're paying to that individual faculty, plus the benefits behind it at 44.5%. And adjunct, on the other hand, typically runs us 2,500 to 3,000. So you can see the difference on a section. If you lose money on 72% of your sections or 72% of your patients or whatever customers, you're probably not going to be in a place of continuing that mission long term. So what Jeff is doing is really beneficial, because ultimately we'll come out of this with common definitions. We'll come out of this with some common sense of how do we apply this at each of the institutions. So it has tremendous impact on the overall financial health of our institutions. And I just can't thank Jeff enough for being willing to grab hold of this one and run with it.
It's an exciting one. I like numbers and data, and we can visualize things and do some graphics. So it should be a good one. Transitioning into the next one, financial aid award analysis. This will be similar, and it's not a traditional project that you hear come from an internal auditor, but I think this one's a big one because, again, it affects all of our colleges, and we'll be able to look at compare data from each college, but call this financial aid award analysis. Unfortunately, the fact is that you can go to Delgado, SLCC, Central, LDCC, same person, same schedule, fill out your FAFSA, and you might get a different financial aid award amount at all four. Why is that? Because it should be the same, because it's the same data. My belief, and Dr. Sullivan and I have talked about this, is you're relying too much on the person who is assisting that student and not enough on the process. So if we can visualize the data and actually show, hey, this is existing, you're getting different numbers here. Also, your numbers there are parts of the state that are poorer than others, for lack of a better term. When you're comparing apples to apples, you should see a trend where those poorer parts of the state have higher financial aid award amounts than, say, a center, a bigger area. That's not always the case either. Why is that? It shouldn't be that way. You should be able to trend that out. It's predictable because the input is the same. So the first part of it is getting that data out there, and then start to dive in to see, okay, what is different at this college and this college. And also, like I was mentioning, that part of the maturity, this kind of ties into that financial aid policies and procedures from this past fiscal year. You take that and you're starting to push the colleges in this direction of getting a standardized process, and then that should trickle up here to where no matter where you go in the system, if you're taking the same courses, you have the same background information, same financial information, you're going to get the same award amount. And it's exciting to see that, impact, carrying across plans. This is another big one. Again, it's going to take a lot of time because this is something we've never done, but I think the juice is going to be worth the squeeze. And again, this will be something we can present to you and visualize data, and which is always fun, really nerdy stuff that I enjoy. The last project, and again, it's required, we'll carry on with our purchase travel cards. We usually try to do 3 or 4 a year. Again, there's a 3-year cycle for our colleges with these. The Division of Administration will write up our colleges if internal audit has not reviewed their purchase or travel card system in a 3-year period. So a college is never going to get a finding because internal audit didn't do something. So that's why we do them. Full disclosure, I do not think the risk is very high with the purchase and travel card system. These systems have spending limits on the cards. There's a lot of checks and balances already built in there, but the big thing with these is public relations hit. And when you think of some, $5,000 on a credit card, it's not even a rounding error in the grand scheme of things. But somebody writes that somebody bought $5,000 worth of Taylor Swift tickets with the Bipsy credit card, that might make the second page of the paper. So I get the importance of it, but again, I want to reiterate, the risk is very low with these things. Nobody has the ability to grab one of these and run it up for 6 figures. Again, we'll present those and hopefully we see that turn again where no findings or minimal findings and any issues that we do find, we'll be able to correct before present it to you. That is, I say all we have, it's gonna be a challenge, but that's what we have for fiscal year 25-26 audit plan. Are there any questions or concerns that you have?
The only thing I heard with the trying to make it the same for getting the financial aid at all the colleges, right? I mean, are all gonna utilize like AI, it seems like, you know, this way. I mean, like, I feel like, I mean, I'm no expert at this, but like, hey, just load this stuff up. Hey, I'll take pictures and fill out the form for you. And you can eliminate, I'm not saying eliminate positions, but I mean, if we're trying to look for
Yeah.
financial stability.
We're dabbling. The issue, it's funny you mentioned that because I went to the ACFE conference this past year and 80% of the sessions were on AI. I mean, it's AI. One person pointed out, and there's a data security issue that you're dealing with. And a lot of companies are putting in place, like, they won't even allow you, they've blocked AI on their computers because what people were doing was taking sensitive information and running it through these large language models and they're getting back what they want, but you've just given
The internet.
the cloud the sensitive information. So I try to keep that in mind, but yeah, that is true. If, you know, policies, procedures, front end stuff, but actual student information or dollar award amounts, that's a trickier. I know there's some pay for stuff that supposedly is secure, but again, I don't know where that's gonna go. But yeah, the future is AI and we'd be stupid not to take advantage of it. You know, I'm sure everybody is getting these emails now where you're like, wow, this person's really improved the way. So I think we're seeing mostly on that, but it's really limitless and it's hard to wrap your head around where it's going. But I do agree with what you're saying is it does, when you're talking about cost cutting and not even that.
Just standardization.
Yeah, and I look at it as an efficiency. You know, you take a document that you might be 20 pages and you wanna pull out instead of reading that, you can ask it to pull out the highlights, bullet for you. That type of stuff is, I mean, that's allowing you more time to focus on your more impactful work and not the busy work. So with that, we've already done that with that's an example of how we're using it, but I haven't used it as far as like putting big data in there and getting
I'll
something.
get the secure information standpoint.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be a company that comes out with like, hey, I've got HIPAA compliant.
Yeah,
Go in
exactly.
stuff.
Oh, it's all coming, yes. Yeah, a lot of these sessions were vendors presenting their own product and hey, use us, you know.
Bad data in, bad data out.
Right. That's a good point as well. I mean, some people try to use the AI as like this arbiter of truth. But I mean, if you're just getting, it's only taking what it's not coming to its own conclusion. So I think that's an important point. Any other questions? No? Okay, Erica, I have these are the same for the committee action.
Okay.
Do you have the one for the?
You have the recommendation in your script.
No, I don't. Do you have?
Yeah.
I can read it.
There you go.
All right. Okay, staff recommends that the audit committee of the LCTCS Board of Supervisors approve the proposed annual audit plan for fiscal year 25-26 as presented by the internal audit director to be effective upon approval through June 30, 2026.
Recommendation to staff.
Motion by Supervisor Hogan, seconded by Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you.
And John, that wasn't written by AI either, right?
No.
Let's make that clear.
Vocabulary seemed pretty nice.
You next on the agenda, we usually have legislative audit reports and Joe presents that, but we have none, so.
Yeah, we have none at the moment. One's on the horizon, for one college and They will be hitting us really in the next few months through December, based on the annual financial reports that are being prepared and submitted this week to our system office at the board office. So once those hit, and literally the auditors are like dogs just waiting there at the doorstep, waiting for us to throw them these AFRs, right? When can we have them? When can we have them? And just before the ink even dries, they get a copy and they're off to the races. So we'll have, we'll be in the audit throes for the next few months and you'll be seeing those reports coming out.
You get this one off, but the next one will probably be busy for you, Jeff. Any other questions, concerns?
Questions, comments? No new business.
I want to say one thing. I want to thank my staff, Charles and Hope. Anything that I do right is on them, that they do a lot of this work, and I'm just there to guide them and be a great leader. I'm sure that's what they would say. Anything that goes wrong is my fault, so I just want to give them kudos. They're great to work with and they're a big asset to the system. The amount of work that we get done, I think is a testament to their hard work, and I really appreciate everything they do.
Thank you. Well, I can speak personally. I think you guys have shown to be proactive. It's been very beneficial for the system. So thank you. No new business, I guess, I'll motion to join.
Motion by Supervisor Moody, seconded by Supervisor Johnson.
Yeah.